Welcome to our YouTube channel. These are pictures over the last couple of weeks, really going back to February 22nd. I finally finished the pruning in early April, and these are some pictures. Eventually, you want things to look like this, looking really good with an outward facing bud. We're going to talk about that. Had a lot of cold snaps, but again, you have 3 bud eyes, each bud eye on the cane, so you have multiple chances for the rows to survive cold weather. This video is going to cover some of the basics of pruning and show what we did over the last a month and a half to 2 months, how you want to focus on dead canes. Anytime you see the dark shading on your pith of the cane like that, you want to prune lower on the bush until it looks like that. We're going to talk about how we use tarps and trash cans and buckets or tubs to get all of those prunings to the curb. So it's quite the long process here over the better half of almost 2 months. Pruning can certainly be intimidating, but the biggest thing you're trying to do is remove dead canes. Sometimes you can see them from afar like this. Other times you'll see them lower on the bush where the whole cane itself is dead. Other times you'll prune the cane, you'll see that dark pith. You want to prune lower on the cane until it is more of a white color in terms of the center. So it looks scary and it's intimidating, but again, you're helping this for the health of the bush. Anything dead needs to be removed, whether it's a whole cane or you're cutting back until you get to green pith, and you'll see some of those dead canes are quite obvious. The other thing is you're doing a shaping in the bush. Anything that's crossing like this image is showing, by cleaning that up, you're going to prevent future issues. Anything spindly or crossing is only going to rub and cause damage like that in the future. So by removing these spindly canes and issues that may cause injury in the future, you're helping the bush out itself. Now, all those canes have to go somewhere, and luckily my town does a brush pickup because that somewhere was my curb. For the most part, I use a large trash can, but also tarps and tubs to get them to the curb. No matter where you are, after you're done your spring pruning, it's a good time to put down a slow release fertilizer. I'm showing Osmocote here because that's a brand that a lot of folks recognize. It's quite expensive. You'll notice it's 14, 14, 14, and it has a slow release component. I prefer what I can find locally at our farm supply store in Smithfield, 21,612. It also has slow release in it, $25 for 50 pounds. You can't beat that. This fertilizer will give it a nice boost this spring, but it will also be long-lasting right into early summer. In addition to the fertilizer, I put down some lime. Honestly, this should have been done in the fall, but by the time the test came in January, it is what it is. You'll notice from my soil test, I have a pH close to 6, so the recommendation was 40 to 80 pounds per 1,000 square feet. So just dividing that by 10, roughly 4 to 6 pounds per bed. Some of the beds themselves had a higher pH and didn't require as much lime. So can't stress it enough. Get a soil test, know what your soil needs. I'm making some slight adjustments, trying to increase my pH ever so slightly to get closer to 6.5. For the fertilizer, it was a ½ cup per mature bush, a quarter cup less if it's smaller. So the garden is now starting to look more normal. I can't stress that enough because it's kind of scary. After you do some pruning, especially if you have a lot of dieback, you remove your cross canes, your spindly ones, you're not left with a lot. But eventually it looks like this. You have a lot of new, tender growth, brilliant leaves. These are new leaves on your bush and they look outstanding. Initially, it'll look like this. The bud eyes will start to push out. If it gets cold, those are still pretty hardy for cold weather, but the more they push out, they may get nipped with frost now and then, but the more dormant they are, the more protected they are. But they'll recover if they get nipped in the frost. Eventually, you'll see more growth on the bush, and if you have growth from the bud eye itself or from the bud union down low, those are basal breaks. As you see here, those are your fresh new canes going forward. We still have some dead canes on the bush that I need to prune out. These weren't obvious at the time, but they're more obvious now. If you don't have leaves coming out of your cane and it starts to have that dead look, just go ahead and remove it for a second pruning in the spring. If all the canes are dead, unfortunately the bush is dead. This is an example of that. Other ones will still have some winter injury on them like this. If it's a green above it, especially with leaves, don't worry about it. One last thing, spray, spray, spray. Your first spray is important. I had a little black spot sneak up on me, so I made sure to spray as soon as I could. Some bushes didn't require a lot of pruning. Yolande de Aragon, I pruned it back, but it was pretty tall, so I didn't want to hack it, and it's already showing some buds. These should be open shortly here in our garden. The garden is really coming alive. This is mid-April. The azaleas are blooming. We're going to talk about what are these? Seedlings, flowers. We're going to talk about that in the future, trying to get into some cut flowers in our yard. I also want to talk about other things. I talk about blueberries. We're trying raspberries and blackberries this year. On the right is a raspberry. On the left is a blackberry. And also maiden roses. I'm going to do a video on those from Steve Singer. If you saw us on one of our last videos, we had roses from John Smith. Look at these. They came as bare roots a couple months ago. Now they're potted up and they are looking outstanding. We'll do an update on those. The rest of the things on the deck looking pretty good, but again, it's pretty early, mid-April. These New Guinean impatiens are from last year, as are the geraniums. That's it for now. Subscribe and check back for more updates.